Lilia, the new release champion, is absolutely broken in my opinion. She has infinite mobility. She has tons of sustain. She has an absolutely broken ultimate that can sleep everyone, and she is pretty much a hybrid of Morgana and Singed. So if you guys are interested about my tier list for the new patch, then definitely stay tuned and let's hop right into it. Bam! Hey, what's up guys, Darkbreaker here, and in today's video with a new massive tier list for patch 3.5B, the new champion Lilia just got released and she is absolutely broken in my opinion. She's super strong. If you guys are wondering why she is not within the tier maker, it's because she wasn't added yet. I'm gonna edit it and I'm just gonna say she is a very strong jungler. So if you guys are not seeing her immediately, it's because she wasn't added yet. But I hope you guys will enjoy this tier list. If you guys are enjoying it and you like to hear my personal opinion about the current meta and what I think is good or bad, as always, this is just an orientation for you guys, then definitely make sure to leave a like and subscribe to support the channel, so more people hopefully will see the tier list, and obviously it will help people to actually go for good champions that are easier to play, or they have a higher likelihood of performing better in solo queue than some other picks. But at the end of the day, if you are a master of a certain champion because you're a one-trick pony on a Kale or on a Teemo, you can perform still pretty solid. But let's say you're a master on one of the best champions in the game, which is meta right now, then you probably have an easier time. But if you guys want to have a challenge, then obviously do whatever you want. Like I said, just an orientation. So this is Lilia. She is absolutely cracked in my opinion. But let's get started with the Baron lane part. So for the Baron lane, we have a few changes here and there. I mean, at the end of the day, patch 3.5B just added a few balance changes and a lot of skins, but skins are obviously not buffing up the champion. Sometimes Riot does do it though, like they're buffing a champion with the release of a new skin. Maybe sometimes they're doing that, but not this time, I think. So Baron lane, I just wanna make sure. Star means that the champion got changed or they moved within the tier list, and they are not in an order. So it doesn't mean Aatrox is the best. It could also mean Garen is the best. So don't, this is not in order, just to make sure and clarify so you guys understand. So Baron lane, we have Mr. Aatrox. He is, in my opinion, still a very broken Baron laner, has a lot of knockups, has a lot of sustain. If you guys think, okay, he's not that strong anymore, then you are not playing him correctly. In my opinion, he's still very good. Then we have Gwen. Gwen, tons of damage, insane sustain as well, and on top of that, she has true damage as well. Jax, one of the best split pushers in the game, one of the best duelists as well, and a late game scaling monster that can still be pretty good in team fights as well. That's why he's S+. Some people are saying, I've read the comments when I uploaded the Jax video where people are saying, Jax is weak in the early game, Jax is not good in a 1v1 in the early game. Honestly, I think Jax is super solid against majority of champions in the early game. If you're just running Grasp and you use the third ability well, I think Jax is super strong. There are a few matchups where he might struggle a little bit, but in my opinion, not that much. Next one, Wukong. Wukong has infinite sustain, has one of the best ultimates for team fightings as well, and he can hold his own against a lot of bruisers in the Baron lane. Super solid pick and also very easy to play. Next one, Fiora. Not that easy to master. She is a pretty high skill ceiling champion in my opinion. Great duelist, one of the best Baron laners in the early game, skates like a truck, not that strong in team fights. If you play her correctly, you can make her work, obviously, also in team fights, but she's more like a split pusher duelist. In the right hand, still very good in my opinion. Next one, Gregors. You can go full AP Gregors if you guys if you guys have already enough frontline or tanky support, maybe you just want to be a damage dealer, you can go full AP, very solid, or you're using a tanky Gragas build with Grasp or Face Rush. That is super, super good if you guys are lacking frontline and you also want to do a decent amount of damage as well. Gragas, in my opinion, a very solid champion. Next one, Jace, one of the strongest, probably, no, let's not say the strongest, one of the strongest Baron laners in the laning phase. Insane poking damage. Also in team fights, he has really good poking damage. I think I'm gonna upload a 40-minute banger for Jace pretty soon. A 40-minute game on Jace, so you guys can see the potential of Baron lane Jace. Even late game, he is still solid. Not the strongest in comparison to others, but if you go to lethality build, you can still poke them down. Heartbreaker makes him strong in the 1v1 and makes his turret sieging potential even better. Renekton, one of the most complete Baron laners in terms of coverage. He is a good frontliner, he has decent amount of CC, he can hold the lane pretty well, he's strong in the early game. In the full late game, he might fall off a little bit, but in the mid game he is really, really strong in my opinion. Like, he just does everything at a pretty good level. Now, next one is Akali. She is one of the best assassins in the game that can hard carry on her own 1 versus 9 pretty much. This also applies for the mid lane. Riven got buffed and that makes her laning phase much, much better. And on top of that, she's also getting armor for the late game, a slight nerf on the third ability, but I think the net adjustments are positive for Riven, definitely making her laning phase much, much better. And I think in the current meta, Riven is, I think she is actually better than some bruisers because it's easier for her to reach the backline and one-shot people as an assassin flanker. So if you play her well, in the 1v1 you're strong, and I think you can win almost any matchup. At the end of the day, some matchups are obviously skill based. So if you're well skilled Riven, you can always make her work. And then in team fights, some compositions can be tricky. Obviously high crowd control, but this applies for any bruisers pretty much. But I think the mobility and the flank potential that Riven has with a nice Q3 flash combo can be pretty devastating against all those squishy high mobility team compositions that you're seeing right now. Next one is going to be Garen. Garen used to be S+ for a very long time because he's super easy to play, he is super tanky, and he still does a lot of damage. And now they buffed the third ability again, and in my opinion, Garen is super, super strong. The thing is, some of the other champions in S+ tier, they are so much harder to play and execute, while Garen is literally brain damage to play. It's so easy to play Garen, and I think that's why it just elevates him. Like, he's strong and easy to play, so you don't require high skill for him, so it just makes him easier to reach the S+ potential. Let's say an Akali or Fiora. If you are bad on them, maybe they are just A tier. But if you're good on them, excelling on them, knowing how to play them correctly, S+ tier. And I think Garen's just much, much easier to play and execute correctly. Next one is gonna be Sett. I'm gonna combine him with Darius like last time because they're both juggernauts, and the explanation is both the same, that they're super tanky, they have good damage. Sett has better crowd control, while Darius, both have good catch potential. Both Sett and Darius have the third ability to catch people. Darius, on the other hand, has more damage, while Sett is more tanky. But you guys already know what's the answer. Mobility and crowd control. They will struggle against a lot of team compositions to reach them. But I think Sett is like a case of very close to S+ tier. You could argue that he could be S+ tier as well. Like, it doesn't really matter. High S or low S+, it's literally the same. He's a very strong Baron laner if you play him correctly. Camille, she is definitely much better right now with the Sunra buff, but she is not as strong as she used to be. She's still a super solid duelist, great catch potential with the ultimate to yeah, maybe catch the backline somehow. 1v1 wise, she scales super well, but I think she is definitely weaker than Fiora, Jax. Riven is tricky. I think Riven wins in the early game, but I'm not sure about the full late game who wins. Not sure. I haven't played Camille in a while. I have played Camille once in a while against Aatrox, but didn't really play her too much lately. I still think she is not at the point where she's S+ anymore because of the... She received so many nerfs in a row. She is like the third ability nerf hurt her a lot. The first ability nerf, guys, remember the good times when Camille's first ability did 100% true damage from the get-go. Next one is gonna be Sion. He's a super tanky champion, great split pusher, good in team fights, good crowd control, very solid. Malphite and Shen, let's just put them together, mix it easier for me. Both are tanks with good crowd control. Malphite has an insane ultimate, while Shen also has a really good ultimate to join team fights. I would say Shen is the better 1v1 champion, while Malphite is the better team fighting champion. Malphite's problem is definitely that he's getting outscaled and he's getting pushed in, so if you're playing against a split pusher, that will always push in the wave, apply pressure. Malphite might have the problem that he won't be able to join team fights and he won't be able to hold the lane. While Shen, on the other hand, yes, his laning phase or his 1v1 is much better, especially with Sunra or even with Hullbreaker, but his impact in teamfights is not as big as Malphite's. Obviously, a good taunt can be pretty good. I'm not gonna deny that. Next one is gonna be Aurelia. Aurelia is a crazy 1v9 assassin machine. I would say she is pretty hard to execute, high skill ceiling, but if you're good on her, you can definitely make her work. I think in the mid lane she's much better, because she doesn't face that many hard matchups in comparison to the Baron lane. Okay, let's move on to Mr. Pantheon. Pantheon received a buff on the third ability and the ultimate, but at the end of the day, it's not a major buff and it's just gonna make him slightly better. And the main problem is still that he is getting outscaled by a lot of champions and he is falling off in the mid and late game, in my opinion. Warwick. Honestly, in the 1v1, Warwick is really solid, but the problem is his teamfight impact. In teamfights, he is pretty weak. Like, you have the ultimate, but you can't do that much otherwise. Like, you are pretty squishy at the end of the day. 1v1 though, if you just want on a split push, then I think Warwick is not that bad. He has a lot of sustain. Next one is gonna be Akshan. If you are an Akshan top lane main, you are disgusting. You are a disgusting player. You're almost on the same level as a Teemo player. Akshan top lane, very strong in the early game, super annoying, good hard counter against melee champions that don't have any mobility. He can freeze and zone them. The downside is obviously that he is an ADC. He is squishy and he is very easy to punish. So if the enemy jungler tries to gank you, you will have a big problem in comparison to other laners. Cannon. I mean, at the end of the day, Akshan skates like a truck as well, but remember, if you pick him ADC top lane, your team comp is kinda shitty. You need, like, majority of the times, if you go Akshan top lane, you will have 2 ADCs. That kinda fucks up the team comp already. If you don't have, like, a tanky or bruiser, jungler, and a tanky support, then your team comp is just really, really bad. So that's why I'm also not a big fan of Akshan. As a hard counter, 1v1 wise, he's still pretty good though. Next one is gonna be Cannon. Cannon's laning phase is super strong. He is very good in teamfights as well, but he gets outscaled in the side lane super hard. So he will struggle like a Malphite to hold the lane and de-push the waves. Next one, I'm gonna summarize Yone and Yasuo together. The crit win bros. Both are super scaling and both are high skill ceiling. I would say in the Baron lane, Yasuo is harder to play and execute than Yone. Yone is easier to play in the Baron lane. but both have really hard matchups. I think they will struggle against a lot of bruisers slash Sunro champions slash tanky champions. But if you get to scale, they can obviously be really good in team fights. Next one is Kassadin. Kassadin received the slight buff, gonna make him a little bit better, but at the end of the day, his laning phase is super weak. He scales like a truck though and can be absolutely devastating in team fights. Next one, Diana, one of my favorite champions in the jungle right now. She is super strong in the jungle. In the Baron lane, she's still viable. I think she can hold her own against a lot of matchups. She's very good in team fights as well. Tryndamere, pretty weak in the early game, but scales like a truck and is really good in the 1v1. Team fight wise, if you play against high crowd control team comps, you might struggle. Next one, Teemo. Teemo in the early game, very strong champion, very similar to Akshan from the explanation wise, and in teamfight, if he has items and he can set up shrooms, he can be pretty good and annoying. Like he's like a guerrilla, jump in, poke them down, and then get out again. Just keep poking out from the playstyle. I'm gonna upload a Teemo video very soon with Face Rush, by the way. Dr. Mundo, I mean the buff he received were pretty much for the jungle only. Overall, he's solid. Can hold the lane against a lot of champions, but I think he just gets outscaled against a lot of champions as well. And his teamfight value is not as impactful as other Baron laners. For example, a Sion, a Zed, Malphite, Shen. I think they're just way more impactful than a Dr. Mundo. Dr. Mundo has the advantage that his 1v1 is much better though than Malphite or Shen. Jarvan, super solid laner and great in teamfights. Olaf, a situational pick that can be pretty good against tanky compositions or compositions that rely on crowd control. Pretty snowball reliant though. Grace on the other hand can be a good counter against some melee matchups. He's super scaling though, and his teamfight impact is not that great. Nasus is in my opinion a champion that needs a lot of scaling, and I don't like the fact that he needs so much time. You don't have the time in wildrift to stack up, and that's why I think his playstyle is kind of counterproductive with the high fast pace of wildrift. So most of the times you don't have the freedom and the time to scale. The likelihood that your bot lane is 0-10 while you're still farming is pretty damn high. And he loses a lot of matchups in the early game. Singed, a champion that is weak in the early game. If you are a Singed main though, you can definitely make him work and survive the early stages. Maybe you can cheese as well. And in the mid and late game, he scales like a truck. Provides a lot of value in teamfights as well. Nautilus, I would say level 1 to 3, he is pretty strong trading wise. He kind of falls off later on, but at the end of the day, you play him as a main frontline, and for the crowd control he provides in teamfights. Vayne and Lucian, same explanation like Akshan, but they are slightly weaker in comparison to Akshan in terms of 1v1 value and in terms of mobility to escape ganks. Because Vayne is just 1Q, and Lucian you can, I mean the swing is like he has swing and stuff, so it's pretty like it's harder to kill him than the other two. Kayle, in my opinion, too scaling, very weak in the early game, very easy to punish as well, but obviously she is the queen of scaling, and there's a reason why in Diamond Elo her win rate is pretty high, because all games tend to go into late game. But remember, Grandmaster Elo is very bad right now. Grandmaster doesn't mean anything anymore. 30,000 people are Grandmasters. 30,000. I have people that are playing like, they play worse than AI players. I'm not kidding. I'm not capping. I have people that don't buy boots. They go to their lane, side lane, and just push, die. Push, die. Push, die. Push, die. And they never join a team fight. So, if you actually think the win rate from Diamond to Diamond Plus on average matters, then you are delusional. I don't think it matters too much. Okay, let's move on to jungle, guys. Let's get going with the jungle tier list. As you guys can see, Lilia is missing. Lilia's not here. Edit it in. But Lilia's coming! Lilia is S plus tier in my opinion, so you guys might be wondering where is Lilia? I don't see her. It's because she wasn't added yet. But she is S plus tier. She is super strong in team fights. The ultimate, if you do like a Q flash into ultimate into stasis, you can stun them all. You have shit ton amount of mobility. You do tons of damage as well. In my opinion, Lilia is one of the best junglers right now, and obviously Bambi is also an AP jungler. So we have more variety in the jungle as well. So jungle clear speed wise, she is super quick. She is not as quick as Morgana. She isn't, you don't play her like a Morgana, but you play her like a Singed. From the item build, she's very similar to Morgana, but from the playstyle, I would say she is a mix of Morgana and Singed, more like a Singed that just runs them down. So in the early game, you might not be the strongest. I still think you're decent, so just focus on farming. Like, you don't need to obviously gank. You can also farm, and then carry. Very similar to Shyvana, I guess, from the farming playstyle. Her ganks are okay. If you land a third ability into ultimate, you can stun them from far away, and then you get going. But I think the main strength that she has is her insane team fights at like Baron or Dragon. Especially if someone is engaging for you and being a frontline, then she is super strong. She does tons of damage. She has tons of sustain. It's very hard to kill her because of her mobility and her kiting. So she just face rush, first ability, and Nimbus Cloak. Too much movement speed. You could potentially even go Ghost, but Flash is just too good. Q Flash into ultimate, too good. Or W Flash even. Wait, Aatrox. I'm gonna move him like this because we need to respect the other queen. Probably my favorite jungler this season, Diana. If you guys are watching me on stream or you have been watching my Diana videos, you guys know Diana is the queen. Why is she the queen? Tons of damage, insane 1v9 potential. What do you want more? You just basically can carry games on your own even if you have bad teammates. What do I want from champions and S plus tier? Especially in the jungle. The capability to carry games on your own even if your bot lane is O10. Diana is a champion. When she gets ahead, she snowboards like a truck. Respect Diana, okay? Hashtag Diana Breaker. Next one is me, Aatrox. Aatrox is a very popular Chinese jungle pick, by the way. Nova Long plays him all the time. He scales like a truck. He provides tons of crowd control. He has insane healing. The early game, he might not be the greatest ganker, and he might not be this. Actually, he's pretty solid. Honestly, he's pretty solid. I'm downplaying him right now. Good base damage, good crowd control, insane sustain, super tanky. Ultimate gives him tons of mobility as well. S plus tier. Wukong, I mean, if you guys know my champion pool, what I like to spam: Diana, Wukong, Gragas, Morgana, Shyvana, and even Olaf. I used to spam Olaf a lot. Recently, I haven't spammed him that much. Sometimes I play Kha'Zix as well, but if I would play these two as well, I would basically, and Evelyn's way, I would pretty much play almost every S plus tier champion. Because I'm a dirty meta abuser. But yeah, Wukong, insane in team fights, tons of sustain. Gragas, full AP in the jungle. You just have the same explanation like Diana. Good 1v9 potential, great catch potential, great playmaking potential, and tons of damage. Next one is going to be Morgana. Morgana, playstyle wise, is slightly different. She has one of the fastest jungle clear speeds, 135 for 5 camps, or 6 camps now. Full clear is 135 if you do it perfectly. Double camp, blue and ground possible, and then you get level 5 super quickly. She has very good poke damage. She is a pick that you can always first pick. The only problem is the coordinated engage compositions, but that's very unlikely in solo queue. The only counter, like well coordinated hard engage composition. But otherwise, she's a super safe champion. She can stall the game super long. She's insane in teamfights. You just poke people down. You can catch people with a bind. You have an insane ultimate that can stun multiple people. So Morgana, one of the best utility-based teamfight champions. I think that's the best explanation. And she also does tons of damage as well. You just power farm. Power farm, get 3 items, and at 4 items you automatically win. The moment you have Void Staff, you pretty much won the game. Like, it's almost impossible to lose unless the ADC is like 20-0 or maybe Karsk is 20-0. But if they're not 4 items with Void Staff, you probably can win the game on your own at that point. Shyvana, farm, and then Mrs. Dragon Queen is just running you down, super tanky, tons of damage. You just power farm. Just focus on power farming. Sometimes you're like counter ganking if someone is diving or trying to gank and you're spotting them or you're predicting their gank. But otherwise, just focus on stacking up your passive, get the evolutions for your abilities, and then you just run them down, baby. Kha'Zix. Kha'Zix is one of the best assassins in the game. Great objective control with the isolation damage on single targets. If he's fed, you walk up into the wrong brush. Bye-bye. Sayonara. You are dead. And then he also has really good cleanup potential with a reset on the dashes as well. Has invisibility to flank around, assassin style. Next one is Lee Sin, a super high fast-paced jungler that can control the game within the 5 minutes. A good Lee Sin probably is 5-0 within 3 minutes, and he just snowboards the whole map. You just get double buff, you invade, you gank left and right, pop, high mobility, high burst damage. Same for Evelynn. Evelynn also very high tempo jungler, clears level 5 super quickly, and then with her stealth she just ganks left and right, and once she's fed, you blink wrong. You're like, I'm gonna walk out of the base, and you're dead. You're like, hey, let's go to the minion wave. You're in between the turrets, between tier 1 and tier 2 turret. You're like, hey, let's go back to the lane. Evelynn comes. Boom, you're dead. That's pretty much Evelynn's playstyle. Very, very annoying. Next one is gonna be Mr. Olaf. You just run people down with true damage. Very strong. You can ignore crowd control and you have true damage. You just run them down with infinite sustain as well, and tons of damage. Next one, Yone. Honestly, I'm gonna move Yone down. You guys might be wondering why. I feel like his jungle pace is just a little bit too slow. Maybe I'm just a bad Yone. If he's snowballing, if he gets 3 items, he is absolutely cracked. But I just feel like his jungle clear speed and his tempo on the map is kind of slow in comparison to a lane Yone. So I'm just gonna put him S now. I know some other pro junglers, they love him, so maybe I'm just a bad Yone, so he can be S+ if you guys want to. I don't know. I'm just gonna put him S. Because for me personally, I feel like his pace or his control on the map in the early game is pretty slow. But if you get to farm, then you can be pretty good, I guess. Like 3 items Yone, you just carry games on your own. You have so much damage, you have really good playmaking potential. Yeah. Next one is with Kayn. Kayn got buffed. Blue form got buffed, and I still think red Kayn form is like 10 times better in my opinion. You have way more sustain, the itemization is better, which makes you also more tanky. You also have much more crowd control with the second ability that can knock up multiple people. Yes, blue darken form, okay, sure. You can use the second ability through the wall, I guess. And you walk faster, you are traveling faster, but I don't know, Red Kayn seems much better in my opinion. But at the end of the day, he's a super snowbody champion. I guess similar playstyle like Evelynn. If you're snowboarding, he's still absolutely fantastic. Next one is going to be Nunu. Nunu got buffed, and I will try out a new build. I've tried hybrid build, I've tried full AP build, but I'm not a fan of it. I still think a tank build is still. I asked the Nuno main and he told me just go the standard tank build and add Rift Maker if you're snowballing. So I will try this Rift Maker Nuno build. I still think maybe I'm just a bad Nuno because he's like a high fast paced jungler that needs to spam gank, or maybe I just had bad lobbies. Maybe I just had fucking bad lobbies, guys. Okay, wait, let me mute this. Maybe I just had bad lobbies and bad teammates, because I still think like there was a reason I put him this high, because he spam ganks, he's super tanky, he has tons of crowd control. At the end of the day, that's the problem with tanks. If your teammates are bad, you might have a slight problem. Why is he spamming me, by the way? Wait, what is it? Okay, never mind. Okay, never mind. Okay, next one. Darius. Darius with Face Rush. Honestly, he's very fun to play. He's super strong as well. Does tons of damage, and he has the snowballing 1 vs 9 potential. Next one is Echo. Slightly weak in the early game, but insane scaling champion that does tons of damage. Riven, high mobility champion with tons of damage. She got buffed, but I don't think it's gonna put her in S+ tier. She's still like, she is pretty strong. She's pretty strong. Sudden impact Riven is pretty fucking strong. You can put a, I mean, preference. You can probably also put a S+, maybe. She's really strong. Strong in the early game, high mobility, good burst damage. I mean, there's a reason why I had a S+ for a long time. I think it's because the meta wasn't fitting her. That's why I put a S tier. Because I felt like it was pretty hard sometimes in some compositions to execute Riven. Xin Zhao, very strong jungler. Tons of damage, super tanky as well. Overall, pretty great. Jarvan, high pace jungler that can spam gank. He has really good ganks. He's super tanky. He kind of falls off because he can't carry games on his own. In comparison to other junglers, because he's not the necessary hyper carry or damage dealer. He's a utility tank champion. Like, I know you can go the Yumus build, the Yumus Black Cleaver build, but at the end of the day, in late game, you can carry games on your own. Next one, Vi. Vi is a great ganker, does everything super solid. Aurelia, high skill ceiling, very good 1 vs 9 carry potential. Jace, overall, pretty strong at every stage. Decent ganker. Fiora, strong. Like, I feel like I'm talking too much. Like, how long am I recording already? And I'm a jungle. I try to make it a little bit faster now. I feel like I'm talking too much. Next one, Fiora. Great snowballing champion. She is good in skirmishes in the early game, and she snowboards like a truck. Snowboards and skates like a truck. Fizz. In the early game, he's not the strongest, but trust me, 3 items Fizz, and you wanna cry, because he just one-shots you very easily. And the ultimate has a low cooldown as well. A fat Fizz is nightmare material. I've played ADC yesterday against a fat Fizz. It was not fun. It was not fun. And the thing is, his early is obviously not the strongest, but it's very easy to reach the point of 3 items where he just outscales and he gets the comeback a lot of times. Next one, Dr. Mundo Jungle. Dr. Mundo Jungle got buffed, and honestly his jungle clear speed is pretty solid. He does decent amount of damage, and he is pretty tanky as well. Great frontliner. But if your teammates... Actually, I played with Don and I had really bad teammates, and I managed to carry that game. Doing 50,000 damage on Dr. Mundo Jungle and 50,000 damage tanked. I was surprised. He's actually pretty solid. He is pretty solid. But honestly, to be fair, I started with a 4-0. I got a bunch of free kills. I don't think it's something that you always get. You will start the game with a lot of kills or something. I think 1 vs 1 he is honestly not that bad. But ganking wise, his ganks are not that good. His ganks are definitely not that good. Next one, Mr. Panther got buffed. Pretty good snowballing champion. Falls off in the mid and late game. Warwick, great ganker. Good mobility, good sustain, shit in teamfights. Shen, Honestly, if you guys watched Rick's, the thing about Shen is, I think in competitive he's pretty good, but in solo queue, as a tanky champion, you won't be able to carry games on your own. Obviously, you can gank left and right, you can get them ahead, but if your teammates are bad, you won't be able to carry. Same applies for Ramos and Nautilus, literally same explanations. Ramos, good spam ganker, great against physical damage compositions, great hard counter then, but if your teammates are bad, what will happen? You can't carry games as a tank on your own. Maybe sometimes, like slight chance, but let's say you have an O10 bot lane. Do you think you will carry as a Ramos, Nautilus, or Shen? I don't think so. I don't think so. Next one, Grace. Very good hard scaling champion. Gang's not that good. Early game very slow, but 3-4 items Graves scales like a truck. Amumu. Team fight. Pretty strong with the ultimate, pretty weak in the early, and easy to counter though. Yeah. Next one is gonna be Jax. Jax is definitely still viable. His jungle clear speed, his first jungle clear speed is kinda slow, but he skates like a truck and is a very good 1vs9 champion still. Renekton, honestly, he's pretty solid in my opinion. He's tanky. He does a lot of damage, he has mobility, he has a hard lock stun, not bad at all. Next one, Rengar. I think Rengar is kinda hard to execute correctly. I think the easiest way to make him work is the Bruiser build. If you are one of those one-trick pony Rengars and you are a chat crit player, then that's good for you. I feel like it's pretty hard to execute correctly, especially if your teammates are bad. High skill ceiling. Honestly, if you want to be a good Rengar player, high skill ceiling. Because he doesn't do as much damage, and his team fights, like he used to be like in free one shot. You jump in one shot, and now it's not that easy to one shot people anymore, unless you're like the expert Rengar one trick pony. Plus, a lot of team fights have so much crowd control. It's pretty hard to go, like if they go for a tanky composition with crowd control, a Rengar can play the game, especially if we go crit Rengar. Next one, Camille, very slow in the early game, good gangster with the ultimate. That, Chinese that, good playmaking potential. Super solid assassin. Master Yi, great snowboarding champion that can backfire if you fall off in the early game. Like he's really hit and miss. Some games 10-0, other games 0-10. Very hit and miss. Tryndamere very slow in the early game, not that good as a ganker, but he scales like a truck. Gwen scales like a truck, but her early game is so weak. I really hate it. Her jungle kill speed is super slow, and her ganks are also not that good. Singed in the early game, really slow, but skates like a truck. Set. Why would I put Set? I mean, his ganks and playmaking potential are not that bad. He's tanky as well. Maybe, honestly, you could argue and put those B tiers also in A tier, to be fair. He's tanky, his ganks are okay. I mean, you kind of need to reach them first. You can flash ultimate, or you can E-flash, but you pretty much always have to use flash to reach them, unless someone is like enabling you with a crowd control engage. But yeah, let's move on to mid lane. Speedrun. Time to speedrun. Kassadin got buffed, and he is one of the most broken assassins in the game with high mobility. Early game, I think in the mid lane he's doing more than fine. And then late game, he's a monster. Akali, one of the best assassins in the game, does tons of damage. Vex, great utility with the fear, great engage with the ultimate into W, and overall a super solid assassin. Ari, high mobility assassin with a good playmaking potential thanks to the taunt, or should I say charm. Diana, wait, why do I have a star here? She didn't get buffed. I really also didn't get buffed. This didn't get buffed. I didn't change this one yet. Diana, great team fighting champion, great 1vs9 potential. Katarina, great 1vs9 potential. You get one reset, you win the game. I always say it. I say it for the last 10 tier list. You get 1 reset. And in solo, we're talking about solo queue. People are too dumb to buy boots in solo queue. 5 items, 0 boots. You think people can chain crowd control on Katarina, even if they have stun locks? You think they can do that? They can't do that. Katarina, especially in lower ranks, absolutely broken. You can go 0-5, you have 1 good team fight, you still get the pentakill. A champion is disgusting. Like the design is disgusting for solo queue. Disgusting. Karma, one of the best poking champion with insane utility. Yone, one of the best scaling champion with insane damage and playmaking potential. The ultimate, the Q3, the third ability makes his engages super safe as well because you can just port back. Yasuo, if you are a good Yasuo, he is broken if you play him correctly. Like you get 1 knockup, you just wipe them all. Like you just have to play the laning phase a little bit more safer and don't be the typical sprinter that goes 0-5. But if you're just doing safe, you're farming up, you get 3 items, even 4 items. Do you know how strong Yasuo is at 4 or 3 items in team fights? He does so much damage. So much damage. You have even, like, he has insane playmaking potential, even without people engaging for him. But if people are engaging and enabling your ultimate, he is so strong. Let's say you have Wukong, Rakan, Alistar, one of them is enough to enable an insane team fight. 1 knockup on 3 people or 4 people, GG, you won the team fight. Next one, Aurelia, great assassin with insane snowball and carry potential in team fights. Corki, insane team fighting potential with the package. Jay, super solid laner and great poking damage. Pyke, a roaming god that can snowball the game super hard, and his ultimate is obviously very good in team fights to clean up. Gregor, super solid pick in team fights in general, that has a lot of playmaking potential and overall good poking damage. Gragas is a tanky utility mage that has the global ultimate to join team fights. He has good crowd control with the taunt, and he can also stun people. Akshan is one of the best scaling champions. He does tons of damage. His second ability can revive people. On top of that, he has one of the most dominating laning phases. Super solid. And stealth to roam as well. Fizz, great assassin with one of the best scalings in the game. I guess if you have Decap, Lichbane, and Voidstaff and Infinity Orb, literally every champion that gets hit by the ultimate, if they don't have stasis, they are one shot. And even if they use stasis and you use your third ability and Q, they are also one shot. Next one, Orianna and Ziggs, great utility teamfight based champions with insane poking damage. Singe is very good in skirmishes. On top of that, he's super scaling and has great teamfight, great teamfight value. Zed is a strong assassin that is also great at split pushing. Twisted Fate with the ultimate is super good for the rotation value, for the map pressure, for snowballing, and the crowd control. The free crowd control gold card is also pretty nice. Lucian, high mobility and high burst damage. Fiora, great duelist in the 1v1 and scales like a truck. You obviously want to pick Fiora into like melee matchups, best case. But even against ranged champions, you can make him work. The main thing is you want to force early game skirmishes because Fiora excels in those early game fights. Pantheon is very strong in the early game, great roaming with the ultimate to snowball the game, but at the end of the day, he falls off in the mid and late game. Veigar, weak in the early game, but late game, scaled like a truck, great crowd control value, and good burst damage. Echo, 1v1 in the laning phase, he is pretty weak in my opinion. He skates like a truck though. Brand, in the early game, he's solid. His roaming potential is pretty bad though, and his range in teamfights is not as good as other poking mages. But he can be pretty devastating with a nice combo and a nice CC chain in teamfights. Aurelion Sol is very similar in that case, that he has a high skill ceiling, he has a lot of bad matchups, his early game roaming is not the greatest, but his teamfight value can be devastating when they're all bunched up and you're landing a good stun on all of them, doing tons of damage. Annie is in the early game not that strong and has bad roaming potential, but her playmaking potential with a nice Tibbers, flash Tibbers, protoball Tibbers can be good in teamfights. Garen overall is super slow tank. Next one, Morgana, weak in the early game, bad roaming, but provides in the mid and late game good crowd control and good catch potential with the bind and the ultimate in teamfights. Cannon's ultimate is obviously cracked in teamfights. His early game is not the strongest though in comparison to other mages. He will struggle a lot of times, and he will also struggle to roam in a lot of matchups because he's getting pushed in. Next one is gonna be Lux. Lux can be very good in teamfights when you're catching people with the binds, and the ultimate does a lot of damage. I would say roaming wise, she is not that good because against assassins, she won't be able to leave her lane on her own. I guess that's correct. Next one, Seraphine and Kale. Seraphine, weak in the early game, very squishy, no mobility, easy to punish. She has decent value with a good ultimate in teamfights though. But I guess that's about it. I mean, at the end of the B tier, it's not that bad. If you didn't make it into the tier list, that's then sad, I guess. Kale, super scaling champion. Her weakness of getting punished in the early game isn't as bad as in the Baron lane, where it's much easier to dive and punish her. In the mid lane, I think it's easier for her to scale up and farm, but you are still a minion in the early game that can't roam and can't do that much. Only when you are level 10 plus with 3-4 items, that's when you're starting to become strong, but you definitely need level 15. Even at level 10, you're not that strong. Even if you're like 3 or 4 items, you died 0 times, you're farming up perfectly, you're still not that strong in my opinion. I've tried it a few times. I didn't die a single time in the early game. I'm just farming up level 10, 4 items, I'm still not that strong. You need level 15 for the max passive. Okay, let's move on to ADCs, guys. Some people have told me I have maybe too many champions in S+ tier for ADCs. Do you guys agree? But I mean, Ezreal, broken. Varus, broken. Vayne, I can definitely say, okay, let's say, which champions do I hate the most? These are 100% S+ tier. Ezreal, yes, 100%. Vayne, 100%. Lucian, 100%. Samira, 100%. And now we could argue if the others are actually S+ or we just put them S tier. Do you guys know why I hate these 4 champions? Ezreal, insane late game poking damage, plus high mobility. Vayne, true damage, condemn, stealth, high mobility. I probably hate a fat Vayne the most. Then Lucian, very strong. Like, the only downside is Vayne's early game is not that strong, so she's getting punished by other ADCs. Next one, Lucian, high mobility, insane in the early game. One of the best early game ADCs that can snowball from the get-go. Scales like a truck and does tons of damage. Infinite mobility. Samira is the Katarina of ADCs. She is the Katarina of ADCs. Too much sustain as well with the ultimate and ultimate Bloodthirster. So if I had to choose only 4 champions for S+ tier, I would put those 4 probably. I would probably put these 4 then, if I had to change it. But I'm not gonna change it. Corki is probably my best ADC. Do you guys know why I think he's so strong? If you are good at using package, you have the advantage that you do magic damage. Or should I say you're doing hybrid damage. You do hybrid damage. You have 2 dashes. You have great poke. And package in teamfights, you know in solo queue everyone loves the Clown Fiesta at Dragons and Objectives. A good package wins the game automatically. You can split up the teammates, you can zone them away, you can push them towards your allies. A good package just wins the game. I mean, I have a 10 win streak on Corki. I wouldn't have a 10 win streak on Corki if he wasn't broken. Like, you just have to use one good package and you can carry games on your own. Kai'Sa, super solid in my opinion. Super solid champion, does everything super well. Yeah, she has stealth, attack speed, steroid, a shield, dash. She is easier to kill than a Fed Lucian or Vayne though. So that's why you could argue to put her S tier. You could argue. Because she is not as destructive. I mean, she does a lot of damage with your Fed. Kai'Sa just one-shots you. But she's easier to kill. Let's call it that way. She's easier to kill than other champions. Tristana. She might... Actually, her early game is not that bad. Her early game is decent and her late game is devastating. If you play against a fat Tristana that has a Yuumi or Lulu, you can open up the game. She's just gonna... You dead. What do you wanna do? Varus. Probably one of the most consistent ADCs. And his teamfight value is cracked because he just pokes you down from far away, and his ultimate, if you want to chase him, is really good on teamfights. That's why I think his poke and utility value outshines the lack of mobility that he has. That's why he's the S+ tier in my opinion. Saya, super solid laner, great turn capability with the feathers and self-peel with the ultimate. Caitlyn, long range, super solid overall. Jinx, I think what makes Jinx not as strong as a Tristana is that her early game is much weaker. Draven, lack of mobility, and he has shorter range than other ADCs, but he's one of the best snowballing champions, but he has a very high skill ceiling to make him work correctly. Honestly, I think I should put Senna A tier. I think she's more meant to be a support than an ADC. Jhin, super solid, early game very strong, and he does a lot of damage with a lot of Domonics now as well, now that it got fixed. He falls off in the super late game though in comparison to other champions. Senna, I feel like as an ADC, she is not as strong because who is your support necessary? I'm gonna remove the stars. Who is your support necessary? When do you play? Like, I think majority of the times you want a Senna grasp support, not Senna fleet footwork ADC. What could you put with there? I mean, you could play Gragas or Galio support with there, I guess, for the CC chain. Or even Morgana, maybe. I mean... It doesn't really matter too much. Honestly... I think the main thing is it's not a solo queue champion. Senna is a duo queue champion. I think that's the difference why I'm like thinking why I don't want to put her S tier. She's a duo queue champion. In duo queue with the right team partner, S tier, yes. But not solo queue champion. You need the right partner to make her work consistently well. She's not that strong in the early game. She can scale, but she doesn't scale as hard as other ADCs. Misfortune in early game, pretty strong and good teamfight value with the ultimate as well. Ashe has good utility, but I don't feel like she does do as much damage or has the hard carry potential as other ADCs. Karma, Lux, Orianna, and Ziggs are great poking champions with good utility in teamfights, but they are not as good as in competitive. Brand Morgana are very similar, but they are slightly weaker than the other 4 APCs I've mentioned. Because of the early game and the lack of range in comparison to them. Next one, for support, we have Karma, insane utility and poking damage. Yuumi, one of the best boosting enchanters to make your ADC or even your jungler a hyper carry that just runs everyone down. Has good poking damage in the early game, and overall when you go full AP Yuumi, you have really solid poking damage. Then the ultimate as utility as well. Thresh, Gragas, Nautilus, Alistar, and Rakan are great playmaking. Or actually, I'm gonna put Galio as well. I actually decided to move Galio up, but I want to mention that you need you need to. I think Galio is harder to execute than the other champions above him or right next to him, and he works better against mobile. He works better against magic compositions. But yeah, what do they all have in common? They have a lot of CC, they have a lot of playmaking potential, and they're tanky. I mean, that's pretty much it. Good roaming champions with great teamfight value. And since we're talking about roaming value, there is also Pyke. Pyke, on one hand, there are some Pyke players that make me think, okay, Pyke is broken. Pyke is freaking broken. And there are some other Pyke players that make me think this champion is F tier and useless. I think in the right hands, with good map awareness and knowing how to roam and knowing how to catch people, a good Pyke is really, really strong. A bad Pyke is FF angle. I think that explains it. Next one, Lux. She's like not the typical support, she's a damage dealing playmaking support. The Bind is good at catching people and one-shotting people pretty much. Senna, a situational support that really needs the right team compositions. Remember, some champions really they need the right team compositions to work, and I think Senna and Soraka both are these type of champions. They need the right team comp. Maybe either you're like a full kiting poke comp, or you have like frontline to play front to back with high crowd control. Janna, Nami, great peeling enchanters with playmaking potential. Lulu, very similar to Yumi, a boosting enchanter to buff up your ADC. Overall, pretty solid. Good, I need to wait. Next one is gonna be Mrs. Ashe. Great playmaking and utility value with the Ashe arrows. Soraka, like I said, a good Soraka is pretty cancerous, to be fair. But the amount of times I have Soraka in the bad team comp, yeah. A good Soraka S tier, in the right team comp, in the wrong team comp, just A tier. She provides a shit ton amount of healing value. If you have like a frontliner, let's say you have like a Wukong or Set or something, and you have Soraka, is it hard to get through the front line into the back line? I had Astrid being low life and got healed immediately up to full life. She can be cancer. But she can also be useless as fuck. I mean, A tier. I think A tier is fair. Leona, Braum are pretty much weaker tanky support in comparison, because they are not as versatile utility wise than the others. I think that explains it the best. Set, high skill ceiling, good playmaking potential. I think a competitor, very good. In solo queue, I don't know. Can be good, but can also be pretty useless. Blitzcrank, it's a hit and miss. Can you land this? Can you land the hook shot? Can you land it? I don't think so. Sona, Seraphina, pretty weak in the early game. I know there are some people that like to say they are strong. I don't think they're that strong. I think they're very weak in the early game. And if you play a Karma instead, I think you would just win way more games than if you're playing a Sona or Seraphine. Because Karma is much stronger in team fights, and she is much stronger in the early game. Why would you play inferior poking utility supports? Why would you do that? I guess they have more damage value than other enchanters like Janna or Nami. But you could also just go for Lux then. Lux is much stronger. In the early game, she's really strong. She has way more damage as well. She doesn't provide the same crowd control value or the same utility. But the issue is these two champions are very weak in the early game. And since you're talking about weak, Morgana is also very weak as a support in the early game. She doesn't provide as much value and utility than other supports. I mean, at the end of the day, a good bind can still be good, but if you miss your bind, then you are a walking minion. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this tier list. So, what did we learn? Liliana. Why do I say okay? Let's redo it. Lilia on the new patch. Or should I say Lilia the new? Okay. Lilia, the new release champion, is absolutely broken in my opinion. She has infinite mobility. She has tons of sustain. She has an absolutely broken ultimate that can sleep everyone, and she is pretty much a hybrid of Morgana and Singed. So if you guys are interested about my tier list for the new patch, then definitely stay tuned and let's hop right into it. Bam! And so we did the introduction. I hope you guys enjoyed this lovely tier list. If you guys did, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. Appreciate any support. Write down your feedback down below in the comments. I usually read them all. Interested to hear your opinion about Lilia. I know some people will say you can play Lilia top lane, you can play Lilia support. I think support, she is very weak in the early game. There are other supports that provide way more value, and in the Baron lane I think she struggles against a lot of matchups. Can you play her? Yes, but I could also play Alistar top lane or Leona top lane and it would work. So what's your argument? She is one of the best junglers right now, especially since you wanna it opens up more AP jungler versatility, so I think that makes it pretty good. But yeah, I'm gonna try to edit it in. But yeah, I see you guys next time. Bye bye.
Fire spreading all around my room. My world's so bright, it's hard to breathe, but that's alright. Hush.